Hey guys, this is Vol. Welcome to Fluffycon 2011. It's the first game. Got my Empire here against Paul's Skaven. I played against Paul last year in the first round of the Handgunner Tournament. I had my Chaos at the time and I managed to thrash the pants off him, luckily. Even though I was expecting a loss, I managed to pull that one out of the bag. The previous time I played him before that was my very first game as Empire in 8th edition. Against his Skaven, and I didn't do so well because my list was completely out of whack. But here we are, 2,000 points aside, and Paul has a softer list than I do. It's Fluffycon, and we're all taking soft lists. He's got a Doom Wheel, 2 Rat Ogres, basically no items on any of his characters at all, and a few Jezzails, some Poison Wind Glovadiers, and the rest is just clan rats, storm vermin, slaves, some rat swarms, and that's it. I've got a more powerful army than he does, but we've rolled up Dawn Attack as the mission, actually. We haven't rolled it up, I lie. The missions are preset for each round of the tournament. So the first round, it's random deployment. As you can see, I've rolled a 1 for my Knights unit, Flaggellants unit, Swordsmen unit, and they're all just traffic jammed in the left corner. On the other hand, Paul has rolled 3 to 5 for all of his units, except the Doom Wheel and the Rat Ogres, so he's just stuffed in the centre. So not ideal for deployment, luck screwing over a little bit in the early game, but really that shouldn't have too much of an outcome in the later game. I'd prefer to have the Flaggellants towards the middle, but unfortunately cheated with a roll of a 1 there, and having to move them slogging across the battlefield quite a way. Next image you see behind the river, Paul's unfortunately had to deploy his Doom Wheel close to his Rat Ogres. Initially he thought it was a problem, but then he rolled a 1 for his Rat Swarm as well, so with that occurring, then he wouldn't have to shoot at his Rat Swarms, obviously. But he will actually have to go over the river, so if he rolls a 1 for the Doom Wheel, it'll actually take d6 wounds, because it's difficult terrain, and it might actually sink the Doom Wheel if he's unlucky. By the way, it's a river of light. For the tournament, some of the terrain items actually had special rules, and this was a mysterious river which turned out to be River of Light. So you roll on the roll on the Magic Law of Light table to see what happens to your unit when it goes across. Next image, as you can see, this is Paul's deployment. He's rolled a 3 to 5 for all of his giant rats, all of his clan rats, all of his slaves, and his storm vermin unit, which is actually the Isle of Blood group at the top left of the photo in terms of his deployment, and really just facing against them. I've got the majority of my army, the Knights and the Flaggellants, really a little bit out of position. Unfortunately, they'll be up against the slaves. You can actually see some gutter runners deployed in the forest to the top right. That's actually not where he's decided to deploy his gutter runners at all. He was just putting them there before taking them off the board. What actually happened in this game is he brought them on as reserves, so just remember that, guys. Next image, that's me. Just trying to be cheery as I can for the tournament. Didn't really feel that optimistic for the event, simply because there are several people here who have taken lists as expected to be like way harder than you would have expected for a fluffy style tournament. A lot of people really went out of their way to really make a lot of concessions and take as a weak list as it was the spirit of the event, but I knew deep down that I really wasn't going to be able to make top 3 of this tournament at all, so just trying to enjoy what I can. I'll hopefully get a good draw against some good players and do the best that I can, so we'll see what happens. Next image, I've managed to pick up the first turn, I think. Actually, I can't remember what happened. Yeah, I picked up the first turn, and just moving my guys as far forward as possible, because it was Dawn, the Dawn Attack mission, where you only get the first turn on a roll of a 6, I think it was. That's what's actually happened here. Wait, is that right? I can't actually remember who got the first turn, but I think it was me. Anyway, carrying on to the next photo after that, you can see that I've cast a spell on the Rat Ogres, subtracting 3 from their movement, so they'll actually take them down to a potential march move of 6, so they're not going to cross the river very easily. Next image, Paul has responded by moving a lot of troops into the graveyard, which is difficult terrain in the centre. He's kept his slaves on the right-hand flank back, really just trying to stay out of arc of my knights for a little while, and the storm vermin and giant rat swarms on the left-hand side of the field, surging forward against my infantry. And I feel as though I have both flanks fairly strong. It's just the centre where he has most of his guys sort of holed up. I'm going to have to sort of deal with the flanks first, then encroach on his centre later on in the game. Next image, it's quite cool how Paul has this little model of the Doom rocket in this unit. He doesn't actually have a Doom rocket for this game. Yeah, in a tournament where you're encouraged to take as soft a list as you can get away with, you know, taking stuff which is normally considered a red flag of a list is not really the ticket. Next image, during my turn 2, I've charged headlong into his slaves, and my decision for doing this was that first of all, if he did flank me with other units, I'd really be getting so much static combat res out of killing his slaves that I'd be able to win the combat each time and force him to take a lot more break checks than he would normally do just taking the one with the slaves. Secondly, it almost forces him to keep his general and BSB near to the slaves rather than on the other side of the board where I have an advantage. And that's the role the Knights are playing at the moment. I'm expecting it to take at least 4 rounds of combat to kill them all, because there's 40 slaves there, and the Knights really only kill you know, a handful of them each round. And in my first round it actually didn't go that well, so unfortunately losing hatred there and not killing many slaves in the process. Next image, you can see my infantry surging across the battlefield, really from the wrong angle. They didn't really plan to be holed up in the left-hand corner this game, but unfortunately due to the mission that's what happened. There is a special rule in play for this tournament, which is a modification of the rule used in the Warhammer rulebook for 8th edition. We are counting the hills as being infinitely high, much as they would be considered to be in 7th edition, and that's a decision the tournament organizer has chosen to implement, and I'm perfectly happy with it myself. I actually quite like that, because I feel that hills are more tactical when they have the function of blocking line of sight completely. That is except for large monsters and flyers and so forth, and the ruling has been that they don't actually block line of sight for those characters. You can see my knights still in combat there. One mistake really with those knights is that, of course, they're fighting against slaves, and that gives him the opportunity to shoot at the knights into combat with his limited shooting, but substantial shooting nonetheless, so that should be a problem later on. Next image, I've got a fairly strong lineup here with the 2 blocks of 25 swordsmen, a general and BSB, and some detachments there to help redirect and get things into my favour. I've got a Hellstorm rocket battery which has fired twice this game so far, misfiring both times, but it was a dud at both times, so luckily for me not losing my rocket battery, and luckily for him not having 20 or so rats die in one volley. Next image, his Storm Vermin and Giant Rat units screaming across the battlefield, intent on fighting me here, and I feel as though I have the advantage because I've got a Wizard with the Lure of Shadows with some useful spells, and I've got some fairly solid units here with characters, so I should be able to take him. Going to the next photo, he's moved forward with a unit of clan rats there up against my swordsman. Later in the game he does actually fire a heavy volley of stuff at my swordsman and kill most of them, so making it a bit harder for me to combat his clan rats directly and beat them. Going to the next photo, what happens here is I choose to charge the giant rats with the Halberdiers Detachment and with the General's unit at the same time. And as you can see here, due to the rules, we have to share frontage. In the meantime, I've moved a group of handgunners in front of the Storm Vermin, and the plan there is to either flee from them or hold against them. In fact, holding against them will be the plan there, just so that they don't have the option of redirecting into the General's unit. That will occupy the Storm Vermin long enough for me to wipe out the Giant Rats completely and reform the General's unit around to destroy the Storm Vermin while they're in combat with the other swordsman, or to pursue and get rid of his weapons team behind, which is actually one of those whatchamacallits, the ones that do impact hits in combat. You guys will be able to remind me, but all it needs to do is look up the Skaven book, I suppose. What unfortunately happened during this combat is that I won by about 4, and he failed his first leadership check. We checked to see whether he was in range of his BSB. He was just in range by a fraction of an inch, and rolled just low enough, one point low enough to hold here, which really ruined my entire game plan. Unfortunately, when luck screws you over like that, you just have to take it on the chin. But unfortunately, that's what happened, and although I felt like I played this flank fairly well, the dice kind of robbed me there. Going to the next photo, further towards the centre, the wizard has left the crossbows unit so that if they are charged by that rat swarm, he won't be able to assassinate the wizard with all of his 5 attacks per swarm. So that's what's going on there. Next image, the gutter runners have arrived, and they've got a champion with a weeping blade and smoke bombs, which again is a silly combination, but it's zany, and it's there for the purposes of the tournament. This tournament's to encourage people to take really weird combinations which aren't very effective in battle, but they make for a fun tournament, and they give you points in terms of your overall composition score. My pistoliers, however, showing up next to them and to defend the cannon, and with a stroke of really jammy dice rolls, just blowing away all 4 of the gutter runners except for the champion, who fails his panic check and flees off the board. So I was extremely lucky to pick that up. I haven't actually been talking about it so far, but earlier in the game I've been having some very good luck with shooting. The cannon doing 4 wounds in the doom wheel, and then rolling a 1 when it went into the river, and it basically sinking. So the doom wheel taken care of straight away as well, if you guys were wondering what was going on with that one. Next image, the swordsmen have been seriously depleted by shooting and magic, but they've charged in to combat the clan rats anyway, just given the fact that I've got the same initiative as him, and I've got higher weapon skill, and I've got the same armor save, so really hoping to be able to stick around there, and if I can get a spell off, that might actually just even the tide. In the background, the knights still slogging away with the slaves as expected, without any further combat, and haven't lost any knights so far, which is fortunate. Next image, absolute disaster. What happens here is that after I failed to rout the giant rats with my swordsman unit, and they rolled like a 4 for their break test, sticking around, he charged in with his little rolling weapon team and did enough damage to me, and I just failed every single attack, from the Halberdiers, the 2 characters in the swordsman unit, to the swordsmen themselves, just doing almost no wounds on the giant rats, forcing me to lose combat, failing 2 leadership checks in a row, and being run down by the giant rats, so losing the general BSB and all the swordsmen at once. It was just really heart-wrenching to have such bad dice rolling in that combat, but I had to take it. The storm vermin fighting the bait, which was the swordsman unit. The swordsmen were really counting on having the general's unit back them up and charging the storm vermin in the flank, but didn't happen. Paul charged his rat ogres into the detachment that was in the way of the swordsmen as well, the handgunners, and rolled a double 6 for his charge distance, making it in. Again, just completely like a turn of the tides at the last minute, having terrible dice for the first 2 turns. Paul suddenly started having really great luck for turn 3, and of course this being the critical turn, mattering the most, really swinging the game in his favour in a serious way. Going to the next photo, in desperation I've charged in with the Flaggellants to try and do some damage onto his clan rat unit here, but just with a diagonal there, not really doing enough damage. I've got a spell in play which has reduced his weapon skill and initiative by 3, so he's at rock bottom weapon skill and initiative, but the clan rat's just not dying, and the Flaggellants being stuck in combat with them. This caused the swordsmen to flee, but of course the Flaggellants saved them by sticking around and preventing the clan rats from pursuing. In the background you can see the knights have actually been struck by a death globe from the Halberdiers and losing like 4 of their members, so that was tough as well. Next image, the crossbows here have charged the giant rats, which were threatening the wizards unit, the detachment here, which has rallied in front of the fireworks gun, as I call it, the Hellstorm rocket battery. But yeah, soon they're going to be charged by the storm vermin, so it's not going to matter. Next picture, he's charged them with all of his clan rats in reserve here in the middle, and of course doing tons of damage on the Flaggellants. Nothing I could do about that, and in fact we actually ran out of time here. We've taken quite a lot of time with the game. So in the background the knights have destroyed the slaves. What we decided to do, just out of charity for Paul really, was just to assume that he wiped out the Flaggellants and call it a game. Unfortunately for Paul, he was cheated of some points here, because had we carried it out to 6 turns, he would have won by a larger margin. Because of the time we took to play the game during the tournament, we had to end it early, and unfortunately that meant that he didn't get all of my units, which he well may have if we'd actually played another couple of turns here. Hope you guys enjoyed this game. Unfortunately, my tournament hasn't started out that well, given a pretty good matchup for my list, and unfortunately didn't really manage to capitalise on that, but hoping to pull that back with the next couple of games. Maybe the draw will give me more favourable opponents and more favourable dice, but we'll see what happens. Stay tuned for the next one.